You have a quorum present, so you could proceed whenever you would like.
Well, I guess at this point, then, if you would read the public hearing notice, Aaron?
Certainly. Please take notice that an application has been made by Joseph and Lori Baldwin from Caledonia, Minnesota for a conditional use permit to build a cabin in an ag district in Union Township. Said applicant standing and making application are as fee owners of the described lands. Hearing on this application will be held at 7 o'clock on August 27th. Due to the health pandemic, the hearing will be conducted remotely pursuant to Minnesota statutes, with commission members participating by telephone. Anyone wishing to monitor the meeting by telephone must have contacted the zoning office by the August 25th. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of the application. Comments needed to be received by August 18th. Comments that were received by that date will be part of the public record and were provided to the Planning Commission prior to this meeting. This was advertised on August 12th. Jim Gardner will be taking you through the staff report on this. Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Can hear you good.
I sent out an email to all of you. I just want to make sure you all got it. I made a few revisions to the staff report.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, good. Would you like me to start with the staff and the finding of facts?
No, Jim, just maybe give an overview of the proposal, and then Joe will fill in any missing pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. The applicants, Joseph and Lori Bolden, are requesting to place a cabin in the northeast edge of their field on parcel number 14028600. The red dot on the map shows the proposed location of this cabin. It'll be a 20 by 20 floor area with a 4-foot porch on the eastern side. The second map below picks a slope. It shows the slope percentage. The color red indicates a slope that's greater than 24%, which is too steep to build on according to Houston County Ordinance Chapters 3.6 Subdivision 2 and 25.2 Subdivision 4. The proposed cabin would be placed on level ground, which will be more than 40 feet from the top of the bluff. Houston County Zoning Ordinance Chapters 29.17 Subdivision 2 states that structures shall be set back at least 40 feet or more from the top of a bluff.
Okay, I guess at this time then that sounds like a pretty good overview, so maybe we'd ask the Baldwins for a little comment on the proposal.
Land was purchased by my parents back in the mid-1950s. It was all woods when they bought it. All the land that's been cleared off was grubbed by hard work and all that good stuff. I'm sure many of you have had that entertaining situation. We've talked about putting a cabin in that location for probably 10 years. We finally have the ability to do that. Be a hunting cabin, storage cabin, help us to have some entertainment at some times with the family.
Okay, that sounds
Any
good.
questions?
Anybody have any questions for Joe?
What?
What was that?
Hey, this is Rich Shield. I have one actually for Jim. Is that okay now, or?
For Jim Gardner, you mean?
Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
In the summary of noteworthy topics, and Jim just read, the cabin would be placed on level ground. It will be more than 40 feet from the top of the bluff. And then on site characteristics, there's a sentence that with the proposed cabin location being on top of the bluff, the building envelope is 95 acres. So is it on top of the bluff, or got
Correct.
confused by that?
Yes, correct. It is on top of the bluff. I calculated the building envelope, which, since it's on top of the bluff, I just measured the total area of level ground. Since he has that 80-acre parcel and that 40-acre parcel, it was, I calculated 55 acres.
All right. So, that was it for me. I just didn't quite get that.
So it sounds like it's away from the bluff enough, and it sounds like it's pretty well in compliance. Is that correct, Jim?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And then at this time, I guess we had two comments from the public. I guess, do you want to just read those, Jim or somebody there? The one was Brian Podginski, and the other one was from the township. Or do we need to can we just summarize them? What do you think there?
I don't have the comments in front of me. Aaron, do you have them?
Yeah, I believe they're brief. I'll quickly read them in. From Brian Pogozinski, who's the county engineer, he had some concern about the driveway initially, and then followed up saying he's okay with the existing driveway being left as is. And comment from Mark Klinsky, and he says, I'm in total support of this application. Thank you. And comment from Craig Frederick with the township, saying the township has no concerns.
And I guess that kind of concludes the input from the public, doesn't it, Aaron? Because they have to be submitted in writing, correct?
Correct, yep.
So then we could move to the, let's see, discussion from the Planning Commission. Any more discussion about the permit? And if there's not, we could go right to the findings of fact. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
I am.
So
Yep.
I guess, Jim, you'd be leading the findings of the fact. Is that okay with you?
Oh, yep.
Are we gonna take a vote on the numbers that are not applicable?
I mean, just throw them all right away?
You should,
Yeah.
yes.
I would make this is Jim Weezer. I'll make a motion that we skip number 6.
Second to that motion?
This is Rich. I would second that.
And roll call?
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Aye.
Larry,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
And just double checking, Bob.
This is Bob. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay, good.
This is Bob. I'm a yes.
Motion's been made and seconded. We approved it, right? We're done with that. Never mind. So I guess, Jim, if you want to carry on.
Okay. Here's the finding of facts. Number 1, that the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan. Staff analysis. Yes. There are no other known cabins in the same quarter section as this proposed cabin. 0100-0507 subdivision 2, policy 1 of the current Houston County land use plan states, promote land management practices that protect the natural resources in the county, including wetlands, sloughs, bluffs, wetlands, and prime agricultural areas. The applicants, Joseph and Lori Bolden, own parcels 14.0286.000 and 14.0287.000, totaling 120 combined acres. There are no buildings on either of the two parcels, making the proposed cabin the only structure on the property. The proposed cabin would be a place for the applicants to stay on the property, making it easier for them to manage and care for their land.
Okay, Bob Conway,
Yes.
Bob, could you repeat that? I'm just trying to
I
figure out
agree
what
with-
number you are.
I agree with staff analysis.
Thanks, Bob. Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
Ed,
Yes, I agree.
Rich,
Yes, I agree.
Jim,
I agree.
Greg.
Yes.
Okay, Jim, number 2.
Number 2, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis, yes. There are no structures or places to stay anywhere on the 2 parcels. This cabin would give them an area to sleep and stay on their land. Having a place to stay will give the applicants more ability to manage, utilize, and steward the land.
Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes, I agree.
Ed,
I agree also.
Rich,
I agree. I think it'd make it much easier for them to do everything they wanted to do with that land.
Jim,
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
Greg,
Yes.
Bob.
I agree.
Number 3.
That the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Staff analysis, yes. This proposed cabin will not. This proposed cabin will be built on piers. Very little soil disturbance will result from the placement of this cabin.
Larry,
Yes, I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I agree.
Jim,
I agree.
Greg,
Yes.
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne.
Yes.
Number 4.
That the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis, yes. Very little soil disturbance will happen as a result of setting in piers and placing a cabin on top.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I agree.
Jim,
I agree.
Greg,
Yes.
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne,
Yes.
Larry.
I agree.
Number 5.
That soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Staff analysis, yes. The soil on the site can handle the construction and placement of the simple cabin.
Rich,
I agree with staff analysis.
Jim,
I agree.
Greg,
Yes.
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
I agree.
and Ed.
I agree.
Number 6 was determined to be not applicable. Number 7.
That adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis, yes. The applicants already have access to their property via a field access road. No utilities will be installed since this is a primitive cabin.
Jim,
I agree with staff analysis.
Greg,
Yes.
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
and Rich.
I agree.
Number 8 and number 9 were determined to be not applicable. Number 10.
That the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the proposed uses already permitted. Staff analysis, yes. There should be little to no effect on surrounding property owners from this proposed cabin.
Greg,
Yes.
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne, Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I agree.
Jim.
Yes, the remote location of the cabin will not affect neighbors.
Number 11 was determined to be not applicable. Number 12 was determined to be not applicable. Number 13.
That the density of any proposed residential development is not greater than the density of the surrounding neighborhood, or not greater than the density indicated by the applicable zoning district. Staff analysis. Houston County zoning ordinance states that no more than one cabin per quarter section is allowed. There are no other known cabins in this quarter section.
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I also agree.
Jim,
I agree.
and Greg.
Yes.
Number 14 was determined to be not applicable. Number 15.
That site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis. Yes. The proposed cabin meets all of the setbacks for property lines and top of bluff setback.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I agree with the staff analysis.
Jim,
I agree.
Greg,
Yes.
Bob.
I agree.
Okay, that completes the findings required to be made for a conditional use permit. At this juncture, I would recommend seeking a motion to adopt the findings that you've all just created.
You make the
I'd make a motion to do that. Is there a second?
Who made the second?
Larry.
Larry. Okay, I'll go through the roll call. Bob,
I agree with the recommendation.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Greg.
Yes.
Jim, can you go through any conditions that are being recommended and a proposed language for a proposed motion if we have that?
Yes. Number one, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations.
Okay, and do we have a recommended motion or language for a motion?
Proposed motion to recommend approval of a conditional use permit for Joseph and Lori Bolden for a cabin with the conditions above.
I'll make a motion to the permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to recommend approval of this permit to the county board, and should we have a roll call?
Bob Conway,
I agree.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Okay, motion to recommend approval passes. Joe, this will likely go to the county board on September 8th.
Very good. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready for the notice for the second hearing?
I think we would be. Everybody's ready?
Ready.
Okay, please take notice that an application has been made by James and Audra Weezer of La Crescent, Minnesota for a conditional use permit to build a cabin in an ag district in Yucatan Township. The applicants making application are as fee owners of the lands. A hearing on this application will be held at 7:30 on August 27th. Due to the health pandemic, the hearing will be conducted remotely pursuant to Minnesota statutes with planning commission members participating by telephone. Anyone wishing to monitor the meeting by telephone must contact the zoning office by the 25th of August. All persons having an interest in the matter were given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying. The comments needed to have been received by August 18th. Comments received by that date will be part of the public record and were made available to the planning commission members prior to the meeting. And this was advertised on August 12th. And Jim is going to take you through the staff report on this one as well.
Hey. The applicant is requesting to place a cabin on the southeast corner of his property.
I'm sorry, Jim.
The cabin is...
Can I interrupt? I apologize. I did not check that Jim Weezer, the applicant, he's on the line. Jim, you're still with us?
Still here. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead. Jim Gardner, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start with a summary of noteworthy topics. The applicant is requesting to place a cabin on the southeast corner of his property. The cabin is 12 foot wide by 32 feet long and is outside of the road setback. It is greater than 50 feet from the applicant's property line. This cabin will replace an RV that was recently removed from the same location, which is figure 1. About to read through the site characteristics. The subject parcel is approximately 80 acres consisting of woodland and meadow. The majority of the terrain is steep. The proposed building locations offers half an acre envelope laid in steep slopes that could be connected to a larger 3+ acres building envelope to the northwest. Soils are Kennebec silt loam. The soil survey indicates a flooding hazard is commonly a limitation for building on this soil type. However, floodplain is only found on the south side of County Road 4 in this location. There are no mapped water features or wetlands near the proposed location. The cabin is proposed at the foot of a saddle that runs from the base of a bluff to the valley floor. However, as the elevation changes less than 50 feet, it was determined not to be a bluff. Thus, no toe setback is required, this is outlined in figures 2 and 3. Further to the west, the bluff rises greater than 280 feet, and the slopes exceed 40%. So, let me see. Anyways, that's the start of the bluff is further uphill than where this proposed cabin would be.
Jim, do you want to open it up to any questions folks might have for you on your staff report?
Can I
interrupt? Any questions?
Can I interrupt for a minute? Can we identify which Jim who is talking?
I'm sorry, Jim Gardner. You want to open up to questions from the planning commission members on your staff report?
Well, wait a minute. Do we still have 2 Jim Weezers on?
Yes, we do. We do have 2 Jim Weezers. We have Jim Weezer, the planning commission member, and then Jim Weezer, the applicant.
That's what I was thinking we need to identify.
Does anybody have any questions of Jim Gardner about the staff report?
No.
No, I just think we need to, when they say Jim Weezer, I don't know who it is.
And then, speaking of Jim Weezer, how about Jim Weezer, the applicant? Would you care to just kind of describe your ideas here?
Good.
Sure. Yeah, we purchased the land 7 years ago with 2 other partners, and we 2 years ago we bought the 2 partners out. We bought it for hunting. My sons, they live in the cross, so it's like a 45-minute drive. And like he said, that we had an older camper there before, so I guess the reasoning we just want to upgrade a little bit. I live in the Crescent, a good half-hour drive for me to get there also. So basically, we just bought it for hunting and recreational. We do some food plots for the deer, and I guess that's pretty much about all I got.
Okay. And then the comments from the public, I guess as far as that goes, there was just the one about the road, I think, wasn't it, Aaron?
Let me just double check.
I think there was one from Brian in there.
Yeah.
Basically said he was okay with the existing driveway being left as is. And I think that's all there was for public comments. Is that correct?
Yes, Brian wanted a driveway access permit application perhaps, but then says he's okay with it as is.
So I guess now we just have discussion by the planning commission. Anybody have any discussion about the permit? The application?
This is Jim from the planning commission. I had one question about that driveway permit. Is there a driveway permit that is needed, or is the county engineer okay with the driveway the way it is?
I think the way I read in the report was that the engineer was okay with where it was right now.
But there is a notation in the findings, and number 7 of the findings, there's a staff analysis that says that the applicant will need to submit for a driveway permit. Is that still true or not?
Aaron, you want to address that?
Yeah, give me one moment here.
That's number 7 in the findings.
Okay, I see it here.
Yeah, that should, we would change our recommended, if that's a condition, we would change that. Initially, when Brian, the county engineer, was notified of the application, he requested that the applicant may have to work with him on a driveway permit. It was an existing driveway, but if the use changes on a county road, the county highway department weighs in on that. However, on August 13th, he sent an email saying that I'm okay with the existing driveway being left as is, so he would not need to secure another approval from highway to use it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about or comments about the application? If there aren't any, maybe we should move to findings of fact, and if Jim Gardner would care to lead us on those.
Yes, I'd also like to add for 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, and 14 are not applicable.
Who is that?
This is Jim Gardner.
Okay, yeah. Do we need a motion on that, Aaron?
We should have
This
one,
is
yes.
Jim from the planning commission. I'll make a motion.
I'll second
Is there a second?
I'll make a motion that we bypass questions 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, and 14. I know you did it, but I think it should be the planning commission member making the motion, right?
So who did the motion? That was Bob Conway, right?
I think Larry.
I did not make it, but I will.
Okay, so Larry made a motion.
Who made the motion?
Larry Hafner made the motion. I did not hear who made the second.
Wayne Feldmeyer, I made the second.
Great.
Okay.
Roll call vote. Bob Conway,
I agree.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Greg. Okay. All right, Jim Gardner, number 1, please.
That the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan. Staff analysis. This cabin, yes, this cabin would be the only known and permitted cabin in that quarter section. Additionally, number 100.0507, subdivision 2, policy 1 of the current Houston County land use plan states, to promote land management practices that protect the natural resources in the county, including wetlands, sloughs, bluffs, woodlands, and prime agricultural areas. Mr. Weaver's parcel is primarily steep and wooded, which is not conducive to agricultural production.
Bob Conway.
I agree.
Wayne.
I agree.
Larry.
I agree with staff analysis.
Ed.
I agree.
Rich.
I agree with the analysis.
Jim.
I agree.
Greg. Number 2.
That the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis. Yes. This proposed cabin would give the applicant a place to stay and would give easier access to his property. This cabin would allow him to focus more on the care of his land and increase his ability to utilize his property.
Wayne.
I agree.
Larry.
Yes, I agree.
Ed.
I agree.
Rich.
I agree.
Jim.
I agree with staff analysis.
Greg. Bob.
I agree.
Number 3.
That the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Staff analysis. Yes, the applicant stated that this cabin will be on skids. Little, if any, soil disturbance would result by placing this pre-constructed cabin on this site.
Larry.
I agree.
Ed.
I agree.
Rich.
I agree.
Jim.
I agree.
Greg. Oh, sorry, Greg, that was a yes, right? Bob.
I agree.
Wayne.
I agree.
Number 4.
That the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis. Yes, the proposed location of this cabin is on a flat surface, so little, if any, soil disturbance will take place. This proposed cabin is on skids and just has to be set in the desired location.
Ed.
I agree.
Rich.
I agree with the analysis.
Jim.
I agree.
Greg. Bob.
I agree.
Wayne.
I agree.
Larry.
I agree.
Number 5.
That soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Staff analysis. Yes, the soils on this site can accommodate the placement of a simple cabin.
Rich.
I agree with the analysis.
Jim.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Ed.
I agree.
Number 6 was determined to be not applicable. Number 7.
That adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis. This cabin will not require any utilities. I wrote down that prior to placing this cabin, the applicant would have to submit a driveway permit for access off of County Road 4, but we discussed that Brian, the county engineer, changed his recommendation.
Okay, Jim.
I agree.
Greg.
Yes.
Bob.
I agree as stated.
Wayne.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Ed.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes, I agree, and we had the Brian's report, so it's a yes.
Okay, number 8 and number 9 were determined to be not applicable. Number 10.
That the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Staff analysis. Yes, placement of a primitive cabin should have little to no effect on the surrounding property owners.
Craig,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Ed.
Yes, I agree. And there was an RV there before, so it's kind of the same thing over again.
Rich,
I agree. Same thing. RV was there, cabin, same thing.
Jim,
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
number 11 and 12 were determined to be not applicable. Number 13.
That the density of any proposed residential development is not greater than the density of the surrounding neighborhood, or not greater than the density indicated by the applicable zoning district. Staff analysis. Houston County zoning ordinance states that no more than one cabin per quarter is allowed. There are no other known cabins in this quarter section.
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I agree.
Jim,
I agree.
and Craig.
Yep.
Number 14 was determined to be not applicable. Number 15.
That site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis. Yes, the proposed cabin meets all of the setbacks for property lines and road setback.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I agree.
Jim,
I agree.
Craig,
Agree.
Bob.
I agree.
Okay, that completes the findings required for a conditional use permit. At this juncture, I would recommend seeking a motion to accept the findings that you just created.
I'll make a motion to accept the findings.
Second him.
This is Larry.
I'll second
Who was the second?
Greg.
Greg, okay. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the findings of fact as read. Roll call?
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
Okay. Jim, at this point, can you cover any conditions that are being, Jim Gardner, at this point, can you cover any conditions that are being recommended? And I guess just that. And I'll note that condition number 2, I don't know if that's necessary, but the board could consider it.
Okay. The permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations.
And do you have a second one, or no? Is that not on the staff reports?
I'm reading the board packet. Would you like me to read the second one from the staff report?
No, I guess is there, if there's a second one, we could consider it. If there's only one, are we going to recommend a second one?
We could adjust item 7 regarding the driveway in these motions. I don't know if that's required or not, but this might be the place.
It doesn't,
This is Bob.
if they comply with all federal, this is Rich, federal, state, and local laws and regulations, doesn't that take care of the driveway?
It certainly does. I'm just trying to, I'm not sure if I'm looking at the same staff report as you are. You only have one condition recommended?
That's all we've got.
Yep.
Do you have another one?
No, so there's only one condition recommended. That's what I'm looking at too. So, good.
Right.
Do we have a proposed language for a motion that we would suggest, Jim Gardner?
Yes. Motion to recommend approval of a conditional use permit for James and Audra Weezer, for a cabin with the condition above.
Wayne Feldmeyer, I'll make that motion.
Second?
Greg Myrie will
This is
second.
Rich Shield. I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Have a roll call?
Bob,
I agree.
Wayne,
I agree.
Larry,
I agree.
Ed,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg.
Yes,
Okay, Jim Weezer, the applicant, I expect to take this to the county board for final action on September 8th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got some more folks who've joined us. We'll see if we can add names to numbers. Phone number ending in 3609. Who is that, please? Phone number ending in 8659. Who is that, please? Again, phone number ending in 8659. Who is that, please?
This is Doug Duval.
Hi, Doug. Phone number ending in 3609. Who is that, please? Six zero 8-797-3609. Okay, I was hoping that would be our applicant for our third.
That's me. Hello? Hello? Can you hear
Yep,
me?
is this 6309?
3609.
Okay, and that's Eric Wink?
Correct.
Okay. Hi, Eric.
Hi.
All right, I'll read the notice. Are we ready to move forward?
Yes.
Please take notice that an application has been made by Eric and Amy Wink of Holman, Wisconsin for a conditional use permit to build a cabin in an agricultural district in Caledonia Township. The applicant standing and making application are as fee owners of the said described lands. A hearing on this application will be held at 8 p.m. on August 27th. Due to the health pandemic, the hearing will be conducted remotely pursuant to Minnesota statutes, with Planning Commission members participating by telephone. Anyone wishing to monitor the meeting by telephone must have contacted the zoning office by August 25th. All persons having an interest in the matter were given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of the application. Comments needed to be received by August 18th. Those that will be part of the public record and were made available to the Planning Commission for review prior to this meeting. And this was advertised on August 12th. Give me a moment here to pull up some files.
Then do you want to give an overview of the proposal after you find your stuff there, Aaron? Is that the way we proceed next?
Give me 1 minute here.
But is that what we do next, or do we go to the applicant next?
Typically, we go for the overview and then the applicant fills in the dots, and then we go to
Okay.
comments. So the request is for a cabin in the ag district. Within your packets, you'll see a lot of citations from the ordinance having to do with what parameters surrounding cabins, parameters surrounding a buildable lot, the definition of a bluff, lot area standards, and land suitability requirements. The applicant relatively recently acquired the property. This particular parcel's been split a number of times. the result of those splits is that all the flat ground is there's no flat ground associated with the subject parcel any longer. The entirety of the applicant's property is steeper than 24% slopes. The applicant began interacting with the zoning office about a year ago, just under a year ago, inquiring about the process for a cabin. We went through some back and forth there and looked at some preliminary proposals, including preliminary PowerPoint. Earlier this year, then the applicant submitted an application for an agricultural shed, and later withdrew that application for the agricultural shed and resubmitted for a cabin. While the application for the agricultural shed was in the queue, the county became aware that the building was already being constructed and worked with the applicant to halt the work, and then worked with the applicant to get an application for a cabin submitted rather than the application for the agricultural building. There's pictures of the cabin taken in mid-July in your staff reports, and there's several topographic maps and slope calculations and such submitted in your reports as well. One of the primary issues that the board will deal with tonight, in my calculation, is what type of site is suitable for a cabin. In my opinion, the ordinance leaves that somewhat open. We do talk about building envelopes. In the comprehensive report, building envelopes are stated as necessary to provide for adequate sanitation facilities and such. You know, if we have septic drain fields, that takes up more area than the types of buildings that don't. Also, another area the board will have to work through slope requirements. So our ordinance puts a maximum percentage slope that buildings can be located on. Again, it's my view that the ordinance is ambiguous enough where the board could determine that they don't believe that language includes cabins, and that would avoid a potential variance requirement for this application. If the board were to believe that slope requirement language includes all structures, including cabins, then we'd be having our cabin located on a slope that's in excess of what our stated maximum is. In your packets on page, let's see. I realize these are really hefty, voluminous packets that you have, so I appreciate your willingness to work through that. On page 27, we've got the zoning policy. So our office will write up a zoning policy for things that we have to deal with frequently that require some interpretation given the ordinance language. So this is our policy that was written up for cabins, and we wrote this initially in 2017, and it's been most recently updated in 2019. That policy does say that we will apply our slope standards to cabins as well. And that was written with the planning commission members at the time. So it's my view that the current planning commission would have every right to amend that policy so long as it fits in with the kind of the gray area within the ordinance. I guess at this point I would open up to any questions board members might have on the staff reports.
This is Rich Shields. I have just kind of a a general question. You know, at part of what's going on here is this cabin got started without a permit, and it seems like it was stated that in apologies and all the email messages that he was told by a neighbor, a friend, whatever, that he didn't need a permit. But it would seem to me that the permit question at that time, somebody says, okay, you don't need a permit for this. just to make sure, a phone call or an email would have taken care of that problem. I'm not quite sure why that didn't happen.
Yes, I guess I think that's a reasonable way to look at that. There was certainly an open line of communication between the applicant and my office well before that. So that failure of communication it's strange, perhaps.
This is Jim. I've got a question about, you talked about the parcel in its entirety does not have what we would call a buildable lot on it. Now, I'm not sure where we're going to go with that. I mean, if we don't approve this, he basically just has no option as far as being able to build any type of a cabin on it. Is that correct?
If the board were to determine that cabins are subject to the buildable lot requirements that all other buildings, in my interpretation, are subject to, that would be the correct conclusion or the outcome. However, those types of things can be remedied via a variance. We've done, some of you, Larry, being on the Board of Adjustment, you may recall the Giles property, which is immediately to the east of here. They went through a variance process to allow building on a subpar buildable lot that didn't meet the standard.
Aaron, this is Rich Schultz. If the planning commission decided that this was really a variance question versus buildable site, how would that affect what we're doing right now?
What my recommendation to the planning commission would be to consider the application, approve and deny it, and if the planning commission determines that they would like to approve it, but they believe a variance is needed, to do that with a condition on the approval. I guess I'm looking for the planning commission to make that determination this evening.
This is Ed here. One thing I'd suggest is that cabins, being as small as they are and built on piers, they don't create the disturbance that a house and driveway and garage and all that stuff would. And the concern might be the driveway almost more than the structure on piers, and that'd have to be maybe an item of concern, but that could be maybe shortened up and they'd walk a little bit up to the thing if it was too steep. I think a cabin is a little bit different than a residential structure. That's my opinion.
Right. If you look at that cabin policy that we have allowed cabins with no driveways, only accessible via by foot. However, in the past, we've said if you are going to install a driveway for vehicle access, then the driveway needs counties.
This is Greg Murray talking.
Hi, this is Bob. I would recommend the board taking a look at the pictures in the booklet here from page 13 to 19 and kind of assess the site from those photographs.
This is Greg Murray talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was down on the site with the Caledonia Township. It's all winter rolls. We were down there after 3 inches of rain, and there was no washing of any kind. And Caledonia Township thinks that there should be no problem with it because the stuff isn't that bad. I really recommend the driveway is open. Done a lot of seeding and some grass companies down there to do the lawn stands. It looks really nice. So, Caledonia Township recommends that.
This is Rich Shields. I mean, I didn't quite hear most of that. I don't know. Was it just me or?
It was hard to hear, but Aaron talking here. If we want to, I would suggest to the board that if there are no more questions for me on the staff report, maybe we move on to the applicant comments and the questions, and then because it seems like we're veering into discussion.
That'll be a good
Wayne
idea.
Feldmeyer, if I can understand this right, if we're going to okay something like this, or the slopes are too steep, then we're gonna have to okay stuff in the, you know, in the valleys where the flooding could go. We don't want
I
to
agree with
walk
Wayne.
into a
This is
situation like that.
Well,
See-
are there more questions on this of me on the staff report?
May I speak?
Is this the applicant?
This is the applicant.
This would be a good time to kind of give an overview and kind of present your ideas there.
Yeah, I think I can answer a lot of your questions as far as the, you know, I get the point that my building structure is placed on a hill. I want to explain to you that I followed, there's a 10 cubic yard, and Aaron can probably explain to you better all the requirements, but Aaron and I had a conversation, I think it was yesterday morning, where we were talking about the 10 cubic yards, and my background is engineering, so I did the trigonometry, and although Aaron explained to me that I shouldn't have moved the 8.83 cubic yards, I don't know how many people move dirt in their own on their own land, but my whole purpose was to make sure that the land, and I made some misinterpretations. I apologize. I made a lot of misinterpretations, and I own up to it. I need to own this. I took advice from somebody that I probably shouldn't have, and I made the mistakes, and I apologize. However, the 8.83 cubic yards that I moved, I thought was to meet the codes for the elevation, because Aaron and I on 12/27 of 2019 had this very conversation, and that's why I moved the 8.83, because I did the calculation. I said, oh good, it doesn't go above 10 cubic yards. So I guess,
Did the road include that 8 cubic yards?
What's that?
Did the road include the 8 cubic yards when you built the road?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
When you put the road in, see, that's a steep road and that's a steep elevation. Did you include that when you moved the 8 cubic yards?
I didn't move any yardage from that. That was from a logging trail, either from 2008 or from when Lyle Conkle logged my walnuts on October of last year. He used that as a means to remove 30 walnut trees, which there was a trail there already. I think that, let me see what page it is. There's a page that shows, and it doesn't show a date on it, but if you can see, let me show, I'll reference.
Towards the end.
It's the picture should show, it should show leaves, like, where's the picture?
Probably 15, page 15 maybe.
Let me check. No, this is a picture of, it's a picture of the land with, it's just bare. You can see that there was a trail there already. So I think, to answer your question, there was no, other than what Lyle Conkle moved to get the walnuts out, there was no other soil movement.
So your driveway right now was a logging road?
As far as I know, I mean, I talked to Aaron, and Aaron mentioned that in 2008 there was, that's the last time the LiDAR was taken, but I don't know what's happened between 2008 and 2020. I acquired the land last year, January, I think, or March or something. But as you guys talk, I'll look for it, and then I can explain a little bit more. I don't know who asked that question, but I should be able to find that picture. I know it was in this packet, but
it's a completely gray picture, correct?
Pardon me?
It's a completely gray picture. Is that
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
you're
It's
thinking
on
about?
page 7.
Yeah, you can see, yeah, page 7. So if you refer to page 7, there's several logging trails on my property. Now, I don't know why that doesn't show up on the LiDAR. Maybe it's because of, I don't know. But I mean, if you walk my land, there's logging trails all over it, and I can't see them in this picture. Oh, if you look at page 93, take a look at page 93. This picture was taken last fall, and as you can see, there's several down trees behind it. That's where he logged. And so last fall, I got thinking, well, wow, this is great. I have a logging trail. I have the space to build, and obviously I put one foot in front of the other too far, and I made the mistake. I can't change that now. You know, I have to own it, and I apologize. So.
Well, we should have some way of rectifying this in the end, because if people just build stuff without asking or following any of our recommendations, there's no use of us being here.
Well, I tried.
He went way ahead and built the building without talking to anybody. That's wrong.
This is Rich Schild. Plus, there were several times when Aaron told you to stop, and if I read the emails correctly, then you would say, well, can I do this now? And, well, I just want to house wrap this. Well, now I want to I already put some of the shingles on, so now can I finish the shingles? So, I mean, to me, stop means stop, but you just kept going.
No, I didn't build any. I've received confirmation from both Jeff Babinski and from Aaron Locker to continue to build up to house wrapping and shingling. So that statement is not true.
This is Aaron. That's correct. When we first became aware of the building, it was substantially built, but it wasn't necessarily weather tight. And we did tell him that yes, you can continue to make it weather tight. I don't think it wouldn't have made any sense for anyone for to get rained on for several weeks, either later be deconstructed or to later be finished.
That's Wayne Feldmeyer, but the thing is movable, so we could move it. And you know what? There's got to be a better location than that steep side hill there. I mean, that was poor planning all the way around.
Hold up a second. I have a question. Are you saying the building is movable right now?
Well, sure.
Well,
Can't
then
you
why
read
do
the
I
directions?
Well, no, I'm asking a question. Is if it's movable, do I even need a permit at all?
Well,
yes.
Let me ask
if it's more or less permanent.
Says the cabin shall not have a permanent foundation or basement or otherwise permanently attached to the ground. That's what the rules say.
Well, let me ask. So could I put it on? I'm asking a question. Could I please put it on pads then and make it movable? Then I should just keep it there, couldn't I? I don't know. That's the reason why I built it, because I assumed that it was movable. I assumed that by having stilts, it was movable. You could cut the stilts off. My buddy has a side skid. He could pick it up. That's why I built it 12 feet wide, so that it applies to the DOT standards. And things changed between then and now.
This is Rich Schild. And when you in the documents you submitted, you said like this was your dream cabin, dream place, etc. But it seems like if this was your dream, you didn't put a lot of thought into how this was actually going to come to fruition. It was like, I'm just going to do this. That's one of the things that bothers me the most about this.
Well, I guess I don't agree because I don't know if you reviewed the 107 pages, but there's numerous emails going back and forth of what the requirements are. And so the thing is I look at it and I say, did I build 65 feet from the center line of the road? Yes. Did I move only less than 10 cubic yards? I didn't know that I had to wait to move the 10 cubic yards. I thought I could do it. Structure shall not exceed 400 square feet. I followed that. No electricity, no plumbing, no to remain rustic. There was nothing I read related to putting cabin on skids or if stilts were acceptable to the degree to being an attached structure from the earth in the 294-page zoning ordinance.
In the zoning ordinance, it says the cabin shall not have a permanent foundation or basement, or otherwise be permanently attached to the ground.
So could I just put concrete pads down? Or, I mean, I don't get the difference between a camper that's sitting there with wheels on it and something that's sitting above. I could put a camper on here. I could tear that down and put a camper on there if you guys make me. But I don't think my neighbors, I talked to my neighbors. I spoke to every single neighbor in my neighborhood to say, what would you guys prefer? I'm thinking of putting a camper on there. Well, I don't want an old yucky camper on there. I want a cabin. I didn't know. I know I'm wrong. What I'm saying is I know I did wrong. I know I made the wrong decision, but I did spend a lot of time investigating what the requirements were. However, I'm wrong, and that, you know.
Can I ask a couple of questions here? This is Larry. Is part of the issue the land was too great a slope? What is it? I think 24%. You can't build anything greater than 24%. And because of the excavation done before it was measured, the speculation is that it was really not buildable until somebody got in there and moved some dirt. I don't know who that is directed to. Is that the issue?
This is Aaron. Yeah, the way that I would approach that is that Eric is referencing that 8 cubic yards, and within a bluff, you can move up to 10, or once you hit 10 cubic yards is when you need a permit to move ground in a bluff. However, you can't move ground to prepare a site and then have the slope or measurements taken after the ground has been moving. It would undermine the whole purpose of it, in that you could make any place flat. We have a slope requirement. The way I apply that slope requirement is to the pre-grade work being done, not the post. Movement of the dirt, the 10 cubic yards, that's not really an association with a building project necessarily. That might be somebody who's got some steep ground but wants to do some grading work. Then that regulation would kick in. Early on, when I was communicating with Eric Wink, we had a lot of conversations about the logging road and about those 10 cubic yards. And what I was trying to communicate, and I may not have done it effectively, is that you could put a logging road in and you don't need a permit for us. But when you do that, the road you put in needs to be for the purposes of getting the logs. You can't use that as a way to prepare yourself a buildable site. And also, you can move ground around in a bluff. There's a volume threshold after which you have to apply for a permit. But you can't move ground around and then have the site evaluated for compliance with our slope requirements. That review of a site would be done pre-disturbance if possible. And in this case, it was possible. That you can see the 2008 LiDAR flight doesn't show a flat area there where the cabin is built. And you can see the photos that he submitted in his preliminary presentation last year that show the site, page 107 that he had advised us to look at. That shows the location where the cabin is, and it does not show the area that was excavated where the cabin now sits. So I guess I think that's where the disconnect is I'm saying the slope measurements need to be taken before you do the site work.
Well, and I understand, and I agree with that. You say, well, I can move how many cubic feet of dirt, I can get on a 50% grade and I can have a flat spot. You know, it looks like it's reasonable, would be reasonable to assume that it would have not been, it would have been greater than 24% grade. And because it's been moved and changed, there's no way to know that. So what do? Say, well, yeah, he got there and he had a bulldozer and he flattened it out. So must be good. I mean, that makes it
That
hard.
didn't happen though. That didn't happen though.
Well, but how do we know what that grade was before you moved it?
It's the same grade as it was before, other than what's under the cabin. It's the only grade I changed was below the cabin because I was under the understanding that the cabin could not be built on the grade that was there. So I did my trigonometry calculations and I determined that the land that I moved was 8.83 cubic yards. I also got landscaping companies out there. I got a consultant to take a look at the land, the soil, the surroundings, and had recommendations made.
I see there's two issues here. One, I think we could figure out the grade over maybe 100 or 200 feet, and figure that you know, that would be a reasonable way of determining it. The other thing is, you just started building without any permits or anything, and why you did that, there's no way I can determine that. Then it becomes an issue: is was that done in good faith, or was it hoping I wouldn't get caught? There's no way I can know that. I don't know what to do with that.
Well, I guess, you know, I came to the county with honest intentions. Nobody came to the county and said somebody's building a cabin and it needs, and do they have a permit? I came to the county because my neighbor. And
they said you could build it?
Excuse me, what's that?
Sure, go ahead. You came to the county and said, I'm going to build a cabin out here. It's going to be this, and I'm going to build it here. Do I have to do anything? Is that what you did?
I was in the middle of a sentence and I was explaining to you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
After speaking with Lyle Conkle, a great friend and neighbor, he asked how much I paid for my permit, as he purchased the permit 5 years ago for $75 from the county, and that I should have one. So I immediately applied for a regular permit, assuming that that's what I needed.
Where was the building at that point?
It was being built. I got laid off in March, and I was very upset with my job, and I decided, well, after talking with, I don't know, Collins, I don't know who, but he had built one back in his woods, and you know what? That's the thing is people are building stuff back in the woods and they aren't even getting a permit. So I thought that I I didn't need one because, I mean, I'm right off the road. It's pretty obvious that I'm building a cabin. When Lyle Conkle came over and told me that he said I should probably get a permit, and I'm like, a permit for what? And he said, well, you need a building permit. So I immediately applied for a regular permit, assuming that would be correct for my structure.
Where did you get laid off from?
Oh, jeez.
You know, when this comes right down to it, you can talk to landscapers, you can talk to all the other people in the world except the people who are in charge. If you build anything in town, you have to have a permit. The same stuff is out in the country here. Why can't you figure that out?
You went through, this is Rich Shield, you went through the trigonometry to determine exactly how many yards you could move. So you went through a lot of work to do that. Maybe not a lot, but even though you were doing that, you missed the whole point of, well, maybe before I start moving dirt, I should have this permit, or even at least if find out yes or no instead of listen to neighbors who say, well, I built one here and I built one here, and just go ahead and do it, and so everybody's going to be forgiving. Just all you have to do is apologize, and you'll be fine. And how does Houston County function if everybody does that?
Houston County has a unique topography. That's why we regulate it that way.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Wayne Feldmeyer. I built a cabin already. I went through all the rules and regulations before I even started building. You did the whole thing backwards. Don't expect to be forgiven for that.
Well, wait a minute.
All right. Well,
I want to finish.
listen, you know what? Excuse me. I have to go to work in about a half an hour, so I'm going to probably have to bug out of this, but I do want to say one thing. I've had 6 weeks to realize and rectify the mistakes that I made, and I own it. So, you know what? If you're going to raise your voice and be, if you're going to be angry with me, trust me, I've been through enough of that lately. And to answer your question, I got laid off from Predictive Technologies. You asked the question, where did you get laid off from? Guess what? I got laid off from Predictive Technologies. You want to know what I'm doing now as an engineer? I'm working at a care center as a care assistant, and I'm taking care of the elderly. And
This is,
that's
I
it.
think we should get back to the merits of the
Let me
application.
explain. Let me explain. I thought most things you do in life anymore, you got to get permission to do. I don't know what the technology, what you did on that, but most things you have to do, when you do anything, you build anything, it's not unreasonable that you would understand you have to get a permit.
This is Rich Schilt. I would just like to add one just quick thing. I don't think Wayne was raising his voice. I think what Wayne was doing was trying to get across to you his frustration. And did his voice get a little bit loud? Maybe. But, you know, that's Wayne's voice. He didn't do anything wrong.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of the I don't know. I've explained my case, so I don't know. I made a mistake. What do I need to do? Do I need to tear the structure down? I don't know if I need to stick through here if you're going to continue to say I made a mistake. You know what? I made a mistake. My son got caught for underage drinking. He made a mistake. He owns it. You know, I don't know what to say. We're at a point now where I can't look back. The structure is sitting there, and I don't know what to do. And I get the point that you guys are frustrated. Trust me. I mean,
can I make a suggestion? This is Larry.
Yes, please.
I would have to look it up, but there is a procedure for building without a building permit. That is in the ordinance. We need to look at that, and there's a penalty for doing it. I don't think it's probably going to be too stiff with the size of thing you're doing here, but there's a penalty that you can do. You can, I guess I'm struggling with.
This is Aaron. That's what he's looking to do. So the first step of that would be the conditional use permit for his cabin. There would be a penalty assessed. My proposal to you in your staff reports is that we would assess that penalty to his zoning permit that would come after any sort of public hearings he would need to go through. I think there's a tripling of the fees. I guess I'm proposing that we would apply those should this be granted through the zoning permit section of it. And I guess there's some other, the board would have a lot to work through to decide, if they want to do that and how they want to do that. But given that Mr. Wink has indicated he's got some limited time, maybe we should have the board focus on if there's specific questions to him that need to be answered. So perhaps we could get to the point where we could do discussion without him present if need be.
Okay, I'm gonna go with one more thing. I don't know, can you get I would advocate taking a measurement over 100 feet on both sides of his property and see what the slope is there. And if that's greater than 24% overall in that distance, he needs to get a variance to have moved that, to get variance after the fact, or he move that, or to build on slope greater than 24%. And then he would have to get that variance. If it's less than that, then he can go through the process to go through the penalty process for building without a permit. Does that make any sense?
It could.
I'd rather just get penalized if there's a decision to make. I would rather just get penalized for the 3 times the tripling the fine. I think listen, I've been working with the county. We've been working together, Aaron and Jeff Babinski, and you guys make it sound like I haven't done anything. I've worked with Holly, Jim, Amelia. I've worked with everybody, and I'm in complete support of whatever decisions you guys make. There's nothing else I can do, and I'm not begging for forgiveness. I'm just saying let's move forward and figure out what we need to do from this point forward. I realize I made a mistake, and I can sit and apologize, but that doesn't go. That doesn't carry much weight.
That's what I'm
Let's
proposing.
focus. I think we just need to look at this and say, what can we do as a community, whatever, the commission board. I'm not familiar with the process, but I really wanted to enjoy going through this process under these unfortunate circumstances.
This is Ed here. I'd like to submit something here too about this time. Usually we do the comments from the public, and the comment that was submitted by the Caledonia Township supervisors, there were 3 of them. They were in favor of approving the permit, and they are the neighbors I'm a township supervisor also, and I think that we have to kind of consider their views too, because they're part of government too. So I guess I'd like to submit that now, and if there's any comment on that, that'd be a good time to do that too.
Excuse me, Wayne Feldmeyer here. I was on a township board for 16 years, and the same guys pull the same crap that this guy's pulling right now, and then he would call us up and threaten to sue us all the time. And you know what?
Wayne?
Yeah,
this Wayne?
Wayne. This is bullshit. It says
Well,
it's
let's watch the language here.
Dang thing.
Wait a minute now. What I was saying is to find out if he really violated, and then if he did, then he'll pay the penalty. He'll have to get a variance like everybody else that wants to build on greater than 24%. If we can overall say 200 feet, that's less than 24%, that he didn't violate that, then he can go to his conditional use.
Larry, this is Rich Shield. That I think is part of the problem, is that some people, and I'm not saying this is the instance, would gladly pay the penalty just to stick whatever it is that they're building where they want it, and it's money takes care of their problem, and that's not a solution to putting things where they're not supposed to be.
He broke the rules. This is Wayne Feldmeyer. He broke the rules. He should pay a fine for every month that thing sits there when it's not supposed to be there.
My fine will be the taxes moving forward for the rest of my life.
Can I speak, please? This is Doug Duval.
Sure.
I met Eric down here by this site. Greg Meyer was down there too. We looked it over. Everything looked pretty decent. There was no washing or nothing like that. I don't believe he's trying to pull something, a fast one on anybody. He seemed like an honest, decent individual that just made a mistake. I also understood, and I may be incorrect, but I understood that he got pointed in the direction of Sheldon Township instead of Caledonia Township. So there was some miscommunication, some misunderstandings there also. So I think it's just a case of misunderstanding. Maybe it's a little bit of anxiousness, but I don't believe this gentleman is trying to pull anything fast or underhanded or anything like that. He doesn't have a lot of money. He's just an average guy like the rest of us. I guess I'm not sure what else to say, but I guess I'm in favor of it. And as you can see, Ed Dwight and all of us on the board are in favor of it. So I guess that's all I got to say. But thank you.
When the next guy comes along that says just pay a fine, you can do whatever you want to do.
No, that's not what I said at all. I said I don't believe this gentleman is trying to pull anything underhanded or fast on anybody. I don't believe he's doing that. He doesn't have a lot of money to throw around, so.
This is Aaron. I appreciate the comments, Doug, and I'll read the comment I got from the township that Ed sent as well. And I tried to follow up with Ed today after I received that because he brought the same thing up about, I pointed him to Sheldon Township instead of Caledonia. And I talked to a couple of you on the board today to kind of show you how that could have happened. And I guess I want to just make clear that our permitting system automatically generates the notifications to the township, and it does that based on the township that the applicant enters into the system. And it's also set up when you start an application, it looks at your parcel ID number and it pre-populates the township with the township that we believe it is. So in this case, starting with 03, the township field would have been pre-populated with Caledonia. The applicant changed that to Sheldon, and then that is why then the system believes he's in Sheldon, is because he's told he's in Sheldon. I did speak with the Sheldon Township contact, and Mr. Wink did contact Patsy. At that point in time, she told him that no, you're not in the right township. It's Caledonia Township is what she relayed to me. But it is not in the same way we did it under our old permitting system, we don't tell the applicant needs to know what township they live in. We pre-populate that information for them now, but they are able to change it. And in this case, it appears that it was changed from Caledonia to Sheldon.
Wayne, may I ask a question?
Sure.
I just want to ask you a question, and I realize that, forget it. Nope, just forget it. I'm sorry.
Let me speak one more time, and then I'll just set up. I think it's not our job to second guess his motivation. It's, if you think that he's getting away, then we need to change our ordinance and say, right now, if you do it without getting a permit, then there's a penalty. You pay for that. And if we think that's too lenient, people will purposely do that, then we need to deal with that. But I think if we measure the overall slope of that area above and below where he did, and if that's less than 24%, he's okay. He has to go get the building permit. If it's more than 24%, he has to do the variance, get a variance for it. He seems willing to. He wants to know what he has to do. And if that's, like I said, if it's less than 24, He will get his permit, but he will pay the penalty. I think it's 3 times what it would normally be. And I mean, we can sit here and try and figure out what his motivation, and that's not, I don't think that's our job. We have to
Larry,
apply the ordinance, and that's what it is.
Larry, this is Rich Shield. Are you suggesting that perhaps, I don't want to put words in your mouth, okay, that we table this until that information is made available?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
I
a
think
good
it's
idea.
quite clear that
Probably true.
the slope
Yeah.
is already over 24%.
Pardon me?
I think it's been shown that the slope is well over 24%. The whole
Well, I
property.
would say we verify that, and then if it is, he goes to the, gets a variance.
So this is Aaron. If you look on page 6 of your reports, you've got the slopes calculated from LiDAR. They're probably calculated over a greater distance. It looks like they'll
Right.
calculated over 200 plus feet of distance. But you can see the red lines on there show the area that it's calculating slope. So we got from the top all the way up to the field on the top down to the road. That's a 45% slope, and that's 260 feet of elevation change. And then if we go just to the top of the parcel, you're running a line of 230 feet, 240 feet, and 211 feet, and you're getting slopes of 41, 45, and 43% respectively. When I was out on site with Mr. Wink, we shot a slope immediately above the cut where the cabin is, and that, if I recall, was 34% perhaps. It was in the mid 30s somewhere.
So we're convinced that it was over. Well, then he has to go get a variance.
But I don't know how that can be because I you know, that's where Lyle did the logging last October. Now, I don't know when this computer generated what, and that's where I don't know. I mean, that's just my side of it is I know when Lyle came and did the logging, I know he staged logs there so that when the guy came to pick up the logs, they weren't sitting on the road because they're like $1,000 trees. And so I really don't know. I mean, you could probably get with Lyle Conkle and ask him if when he logged how much soil he moved, but that wasn't the intention. There was already an area where it was cleared off before he logged.
I gave you a solution, and now you're arguing with it.
No, I'm just being honest.
Well,
just to clarify 2 points, this is Aaron again. The LiDAR flights in this area were flown in 2008, so those calculations were as the ground lay in 2008. And I think the area that we're talking about, the slope, Eric, is not the logging road, but the area where you excavated the eight whatever cubic yards.
Oh, okay.
Everything around there is way more than 24%. It's reasonable to conclude that was more than 24%. That says you need a variance to be able to do it, whether you did it before or not. And then you're going to say, they look and say, that's 45%. We're not giving you a variance for that, and you got to remove it. But that's when you go ahead and do it without doing it. I mean, that's steep area there. I think that's your solution. For me, that's a solution. It's well over 24%. It's way in the 40s. You need to get a variance if you can get one.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to. Oh, so what you're saying is at the space of the cabin. Okay.
So in the interest of time, I guess if I could suggest to the board that, if there's further questions on the actual mechanics of the building or of the site for Eric, we could pose those. But if not, if we want to, we've already done a lot of discussion, but if we want to move to the comments that we've received, I'll read those into the record. You could do your discussion. And then if the board is amenable to what Larry's proposing, that could perhaps be done via a condition, so we wouldn't have to do a tabling. You could consider doing it that way.
But this is Rich Schill, but Larry just kind of retracted what he was saying he wanted to do. Is that correct, Larry?
I said we should figure out what the slope is. And then I discovered that we have that information already. What was that on page 7? That shows the slope that's all the surrounding areas in the 40s for slope. It's reasonable to assume that was in the 40s as well before it was anything moved. So there's no reason to measure it. It's been measured.
Right.
Now
Right.
the point is, what he should have done is get a variance before he built, and then he would know if he could have or not. But
So could I ask the board to turn to page 10 in your packets and just look at the proposed conditions? Based on what I'm hearing several of you say.
Page what?
Page 10. Those conditions might be a reflection of what I'm hearing a lot of you say, and that might be a pathway if the board's looking for a conditional approval. That might be a way for you to consider doing that. So the first condition would be the one we always hear: the permit shall comply with all laws. Number 2 would be a variance providing relief from slope restrictions is required and must be granted for this conditional use permit to take effect. Number 3 would be a permittee must apply for and be granted a zoning permit for the placement of a cabin. An erosion control plan shall be included with that application. The permittee shall not occupy the cabin until this is in place. Number 4 would be a driveway has been constructed. The driveway must satisfy the driveway standards set forth in the ordinance. Number 5 would be a privy has been constructed. The permittee must complete required after the fact applications for the privy. Alternatively, privy can be removed. Number 6 would be the applications for the zoning permit for the cabin shall be tripled. Number 7 would be the cabin will not be rented or used commercially. So that, what a lot of you are articulating as perhaps a resolution of this, I think is covered in that. Maybe consider that, and if that's reflecting what you're intending to do, maybe we could move forward.
I agree.
Wayne Feldmeyer.
So should we let Eric go for now? Do you think everybody have enough questions of Eric here? How are we feeling there?
Do you have to leave now, Eric?
Well, I have a few questions just regarding the recommendation. I'm looking at all this paperwork, and one of the things that I have a problem with is understanding it all, because this is all new to me. But so what you guys are saying is a variance is being what? What does a variance entail? Or what are the options?
Well,
I guess for me, I'm looking at what's the process for the two alternatives being that I either get tripled my fine or there's a variance. Is that the two things that need to happen moving forward, or I'm
hold on a minute. Hold on a minute.
Larry, can I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, in order to have the cabin remain there, you would need the conditional use permit. What I'm hearing the board saying that they might feel appropriate would be to grant the conditional use permit, but to also require a variance. A variance is a fancy way of saying an exception to a rule. So the rule is structures cannot go on slopes over 24%. So if this structure is determined to be on a slope over 24%, they're saying that we might consider that appropriate to approve. However, we have a formal way of asking for an exception for a rule established in the county. It's the variance process. And in order for us to approve it, we would approve it on the condition that the variance is granted. So the condition that is proposed here says that the conditional use permit, should the board and ultimately the county board approve it, would only take effect if the variance is later granted. A variance process is much like a conditional use process. You're going through a hearing with a 5-member board. They're having pre-established findings that they're using to consider your request. It's a public hearing. It's conducted in the same format as that.
So then,
Well, hold on just a minute. Over the years, I've discovered a lot of people don't understand the difference between a conditional use permit and a variance. That's very confusing. And if, like Eric said, he's not been a part of this process. And I don't, I go through explaining that, but I mean, I'm sure somebody can explain this easier, better than me. But a conditional use permit is when they did the ordinance, they said you can do this and this and this, but you have to come to us. You're gonna build a feedlot. You have to come to us and get permission to do that, and we're gonna look, and we don't want you to build that right next to town. The other thing is the variance is there's a number. The variances are a number, and you got to be 50 feet from the back lot line. That's the rule. But you can come in and ask for a variance because of this and this condition. They're confusing, but they both have a purpose.
well, yeah. So, yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm still really. I don't. Well, I guess it's just in your hands, right? I can probably go now. I'm so overwhelmed with all the information that I just, there's a lot of things that you guys know that I don't know, and to be honest with you, I don't want to try to learn anymore.
I got, Eric, before you go, I got one question. If you turn to page 93 on the packet, that picture that's there.
Hang on a second. Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, this is Wayne Feldmeyer. The variances that I worked with before, when they had issues like this in their township, they gave him so much time. If they did not give him a variance, he only had so much time that he could leave that structure there, or he would be fined. Because in that case, it was on township right away. But in this case here, that should be the same thing in there. We just can't let this thing live in limbo. If he doesn't make and get a variance, then he should remove it.
Okay, yeah, we could look at some time language.
Do you have that picture there, Eric, that 93?
I do.
Looking at that, no matter how I look at it, it doesn't look like there's a slope there. It looks like that area is flat. Is that correct or not?
Well, yeah, this is after the logging had been done. I mean, you can see the trees in the background. They're all down on the ground. They're all walnut trees. There was 30 of them taken out of there. I don't know what the slope of that is. All I know is I misinterpreted the ordinances. And I mean, guys, I just want you to know, I want to be really clear on this. I spent a lot of time going through the 294 pages and following. I mean, Aaron and I touched base very regularly, and I'm not trying to say that I didn't make a mistake. What I'm trying to say is I tried to follow the rules. I really did. And although I moved to 8.83 cubic yards in the nomenclature, I didn't understand it. You guys understand this stuff like the back of your hand. I mean, the 294 pages is pretty complicated to go through but the point I'm trying to make is this was after all the logs left. We took the logs out, the walnuts, and I don't know what Lyle did. I don't know what he did to the land. All I know is those logs were sitting where those posts are, basically in that spot, and that's where they drug them out. Now, whether he had to excavate to get the logs out, I have no idea. I wasn't there.
The post there is your land on the side facing the viewer, or is it beyond that?
My land is everything there.
So the posts that's part of your land too.
That's where the cabin is now. I mean, it's. I don't know.
I guess this picture is really deceiving. Somehow it looks like it's pretty flat there. I'm not sure what I'm missing.
Well, it is deceiving, and to some degree. But what I don't understand is that I have logging trails all over my land, and it doesn't show up on those images. And I don't know. You know, I don't know that technology. I'm not a geologist. I'm not somebody that knows any about that. And that's the whole. I guess if I looked at it from my standpoint, the frustrating part of this process has been not knowing enough about the process. This is my first time building. This is my first time ever owning land. And again, Wayne, you can tell me 100 times that I made a mistake, and 100 times I'll admit it. I promise I will. But this,
this is Wayne Feldmeyer. We're not mad at you or anything. We just want this done correctly.
Well, it's too late, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Well, the way you're stating it, I don't know. You know, for 6 weeks I've been wondering if I have to tear the thing down, and I just want closure, and I want to know what I need to do moving forward as far as, you know, how do I make it right? I mean, I think and Aaron can probably fill you in, and Greg.
You can make it right by doing it right. That's the whole person here. If you do it right, we're going to be happier than heck with you.
Well, it's too late now.
No, it's not. We're just in the middle of this. This is just starting.
I'll do whatever you guys come up with. I'm compliant. I intended to be compliant all along, and I made a mistake, and now I just have to, you know, I'm not begging for forgiveness. I'm begging for what can I do, because this is really important. This has been really important for me.
This is Jim. I think we need to move forward in the process and determine what's before us, and that's whether we're going to grant him a conditional use permit or not. So I think what we should do is move forward and go through the findings and determine whether we're going to give him a permit or not.
Well, thanks for your time, Eric, and we'll do the best we can here.
Well, I'm on the road now, so I can stay.
Okay.
So this is Aaron. We have not read into the record the public comments. Is it a good time for me to do that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we've got a comment from Ed Voigt representing Caledonia Township, saying the 3 supervisors for Caledonia Township have viewed the site. We ask that the permit be approved without any penalty. The driveway is a former logging road and shows no sign of runoff onto West Beaver Road, and there is no sign of erosion in the area of the cabin. And then we got a second comment from the township today, but I'll read that into Caledonia Township Board met Wednesday, August 26th, and is asking to amend the comments that were sent to the zoning office on the 18th. The last comment was received prior to the 18th. The township board again asked the permit be granted without any penalties. This application process has turned into complete confusion with no help or guidance from the zoning office. There are over 110 emails between Mr. Wink or Eric Wink and the zoning office since December of 2019, with no guidance of what kind of permit was needed or if any permit was needed in the first place. Also, if the zoning office had kept the former application process where permits had to be presented by the applicant to the township supervisors for signature, none of this confusion would have happened. It is also our understanding that there was never an in-person conference with Eric Wink because of COVID-19. This application with a $2,600 fee does not look good for our township or county. Because of this, outside people will be deterred from buying property within our county. We request that these comments be given to all planning commission members before and during the hearing. Those are all the comments we received. I would very much welcome any questions anyone has on that last comment to me, and that it asserts a lot of things about the zoning office. So if anyone wants to clarify.
This is Rich Schilt. I know that reading through all the emails in this packet, some of them were duplicates, okay? But with all those emails, it seems to me, Aaron, what I read was that you were pretty explicit about what was actually going on, what was needed, what was required. And so the idea that there was no direction from the zoning office, I don't think it's correct at all.
If I could respond to that, I read this and it makes me think that the township did not actually look at the emails. They just were told the number of emails that were exchanged. But yes, many of those emails talk about, what if I put the cabin on an axle, or what if I put it on a beam, and things of that nature, which are really questions trying to find a way, questions geared at finding a way around rules, not trying to understand rules.
Can I talk for a second, Aaron? So you guys all know that you have to have the structure needs to be 200 square feet versus 400 square feet if you want to have a movable item, right? Isn't that correct?
No. So if you have an accessory building, you don't need a permit for one that's under 200 square feet that's movable. But in this case, there's no primary building for this to be accessory to. So this would be itself the primary building.
So the question that still remains unanswered is, if I put the thing on skids, if I just put it on skids like the guy before, that Jim Weezer guy, if I put it on skids, I'd still need a conditional use permit. But what does that? Would that make it non-permanent? I'm so confused with that. I don't.
Yeah, so you would still need a conditional use permit. The Planning Commission has in the past viewed placement on posts to also be non-permanent, and that they can be easily pulled out of the ground. There may be a time earlier than that when all cabins had to be on skids. But the process that you would go through and the process that the prior applicant went through with his proposal on skids would be identical.
So if I put it on skids, if I took it off the stilts and put it on skids, would that make it right? I don't, I'm still confused, but I still have the.
No,
I don't know.
It wouldn't change anything, and I feel like we're veering off the comments. I guess, we had this email, or this comment I just read talks about the 110 emails that we exchanged, and we've been through this, many times about if you put it on this or if you put it on that. And the answer is, if you're going to build a cabin, you need to go through a conditional use permit, regardless of what it's placed on.
Got it. Okay.
In terms of,
it was and I think there's a piece of information that that it changed from a shed to a cabin in July of this year, really, because I found 7 windows on Facebook for $100, and I think that's what changed it. And I didn't know, there's nothing that states in the 294 pages as far as what's the difference between a shed and a cabin. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, I don't think we have time to get into that.
I don't think that where you acquired your building materials or how you acquired them is germane at all to this process.
So if I could just respond to a couple more, if we could, I agree, but can we stick to the comment now and then we can move on? The COVID-19, so for the county is still taking folks only by appointment. We are doing site visits, so that's I don't know where the township got the idea that we weren't. We do not do site visits for folks before they apply for a permit, however, because we get a large volume of folks who call with questions about building this or that, and a very small percentage of those folks actually build. So we don't have the staffing to go out to evaluate every site based on someone wanting to know, could I do this or could I do that? We do that at the point of application. So I'm not sure where they got the notion that we wouldn't do an in-person conference with Mr. Wink because of COVID-19. And we, in fact, did do an in-person conference with Mr. Wink before the pandemic in my office. The $2,600 number, again, I don't know where that comes from, the recommendation in the staff report. the applicant had recommended tripling of the zoning permit, which would be charged at 15 cents a square foot. So that seems like the township is, responding to something that's not reality.
Aaron,
and I addressed.
I think I got the same notion that it was going to be a $2,600 fee because on page 90, 93, it says fines fee shall be tripled. So if you take 750 times 3, that's $2,550, right? Or whatever. There's just a lot of misinterpretation.
Yeah, I guess I thought that you all have the staff reports to see what they say, but I think that number is not what the zoning office ever recommended. And we went over why the applicant went to Sheldon Township over Caledonia earlier this evening, and I showed you the reason for that. It is not because we told him he was in Sheldon Township. It is because he indicated he was in Sheldon Township in his application. And when he contacted Sheldon Township, they told him he was not in Sheldon Township. That would have been the exact same process that would have occurred if he was using paper. He would have went to the wrong township. They would have said, this isn't in our township. And then he presumably would have went to the right township. The fact that we did it electronically doesn't change that. The only thing that matters, I guess, is that he did not go to the other township when Sheldon told him it's not in Sheldon Township. I just want to, I guess, push back a little bit against many of those comments that I suspect are based on maybe not accurate information. Those are all the comments.
What would the penalty be that if you tripled the usual amount? What would that come out to approximately?
Approximately $140. So it would be about a $80 penalty.
Okay, so that's way different than what's being kind of considered there as a fact, which isn't true.
Very, very different.
Oh, wait, very different.
I think we should.
Hey, Aaron, this is Bob. This is Bob Conway. On page 10 of the recommendations, is that the step-by-step way that Eric needs to take to get this approved? He's just looking for how to move forward. Are those 7 steps the way to do it?
That's one way. I mean, it's at the discretion of the board. So those, I try to put together proposed conditions for your consideration, but you could alter those, add more, delete them, whatever you feel is appropriate as a body.
Well, I guess at this point, I'd recommend that we move to findings of fact and then discuss the recommendations after we kind of go through these things.
I agree.
So if we could do that, then I guess Aaron, you're leading.
That's probably a good idea. But we should remember, when this whole thing goes down, we're going to have to, if he calls an ambulance, I mean, you're talking logging roads. When you call fire department, this is something that we could get sued in down the road.
Wayne.
Yeah.
Can I ask? I just want you to know that right out in front of me, there's space enough for a helicopter to come in.
Wait. This is Rich Schilt. I don't care if there's space for Abrams tank. What Wayne is saying is that the Planning Commission has a responsibility here that most people kind of disregard. And Wayne is stating what I think is obvious.
Can I ask a question though?
We move on, Ed?
Yes,
I think we're going to have to move on.
Ed, let's close the public hearing so we can move on.
I just want to ask a question related to that though, because I need to understand, right? I don't understand that. So if somebody built a cabin on a piece of land without a driveway, would that would remain the problem, right? Can you get there and can an ambulance come up and get somebody? But what if I'm up in my tree stand? And I guess that's different. Okay.
Yes, it most certainly is good. And
I don't think we need to answer these questions right now. Let's just kind of roll ahead here and go through the final
All right.
Comment.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through the findings of fact. Before we do that, you've had a chance to review your packets. I've identified 4 criteria that I suggest are not applicable. I would suggest to the board that if you do not want to go through numbers 8, 12, 13, and 14, that you seek a motion to determine those to be not applicable.
I'll make a motion to not go through them.
Let's second.
This is
I'll
Larry.
second that.
Okay.
So that was Larry, and who seconded it?
Yeah.
Greg,
Jim? Okay.
I'll go through a roll call. Greg,
yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Okay, I'll read each finding. I'll provide a staff analysis, and I'll read each of your names and ask for a yes or no vote and a reason for your vote. If you wish to subscribe to the staff analysis, you can simply say so. If you wish to sign on to a comment made by one of your colleagues, you can simply say so. If you have other reasons of your own, please offer. Number 1, that the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan. Staff analysis, several sections of the comprehensive plan discuss limiting development to buildable lots. However, this limitation is qualified as applicable to residential development or to allow adequate space for sewer system. The comprehensive plan contains policies for prohibiting development in unsuitable areas and for the protection of steep bluffs. The county ordinance, section 25.2, requires that slopes require an erosion control permit for certain activities based on percent slope. 25.2 sub 4 addresses slopes 25% or greater. Subdivision 4, type 4 slope site specific erosion control plan. The county has determined that land development activities on slopes 25% or greater, type 4 slopes, create an erosion hazard, and that the potential for offsite damage to public and private property warrants protection of these environmentally sensitive areas. Here's the county ordinance, section 29.17, bluffland protection. Prohibited in bluff impact zones. Structures and accessory facilities must not be placed within bluff impact zones. The board may find that the proposal does or does not align with the comprehensive plan policies. The board may find that a variance should be sought seeking relief from the Houston County zoning regulations. And in addition to what I provided in your staff reports, I guess I would also add that the township indicated that they did see the site and the area and did not observe erosion. So that might be another consideration you could take into account. Greg?
Yes.
Wayne?
No. Because it doesn't meet the erosion standards, it doesn't meet the slope requirements. It basically doesn't meet 90% of what we have in our regulations.
Larry?
I don't know. It's like we're gonna okay it now and then we're gonna turn it down in the condition. I mean, the 25% or greater, it's not that.
Well, I don't mean to, forgive me for interrupting, but you could, theoretically, you could agree with Wayne, but you could also believe that those issues could be dealt with by a variance.
And we address the variance. Boy, I don't know. Can I abstain?
No. This is Rich Shield. We have to vote on this. This is our job.
All right. I'm gonna say yes.
Ed?
I guess I would say yes, with the stipulation that we approach the problem in the conditions in the end, that the variance might need to be sought for this.
I wish you'd have said that first, and I could have agreed with you.
Larry, I think, or you voted yes too, I'm sorry. Okay, Rich Shield.
No. I agree with Wade Feldmeyer, and I think that the 24% slope issue wipes this completely off the table. And so for me, once I vote no on this one, I have to vote no on the rest of it.
Jim?
I say no because it does not meet the requirements for building in a bluff zone. And as far as
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
One more comment. I was just going to say, as far as, putting it off for the Board of Adjustment, I think we need to make a decision whether we're going to approve this or not, and not push it off onto the Board of Adjustment.
Bob?
A question regarding HCZO 25.2 regarding erosion control permit. If he provides an erosion control plan, would that make him legal in building this cabin?
Past practice has always been to require erosion control permits for houses, but cabins usually don't. For instance, the 2 cabins that were approved earlier tonight will not require erosion control permits when they are issued a zoning permit. The condition that's recommended below would require an erosion control for this zoning permit, should it be approved. Those are plans that are developed by the applicant. If they need assistance with plans, the River Soil and Water Office provides that assistance, and then ultimately the plans are reviewed by the River Soil and Water Office, and if they find them inadequate, they're either not going to approve them or they're going to write additional stipulations that they feel are necessary on there. So I guess that's a long way of answering your questions, but it certainly could. It would either get made to meet what River believes is required, or they would not be able to approve it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to agree with number 1 based on staff analysis.
And there's a lot in the staff analysis that would support denial, but you're agreeing on the portion where it talks about how this could be alleviated by a variance. Is that right?
Correct. The HCZO 25.2.
Number 2, the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. The applicant indicates the cabin is intended for forestry, recreation, and hunting. This demonstrates a need for the proposed use to the extent possible for this type of request. Wayne?
No, I disagree with that too.
Larry?
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
Ed?
I agree.
Rich?
I'm going to vote no because I think that this is my personal opinion. Once you violate it, then nothing else to me, in my mind, is pertinent. So no.
Jim?
I agree. He has demonstrated that he wants to maximize the use of his property with the use of the cabin.
Bob?
I agree with staff analysis.
Greg?
Yes, agree with staff analysis.
Okay. Number 3, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Any effects on water quality resulting from the placement of a cabin are anticipated to be negligible. There's no wastewater system requirement, and it's presumed that individuals approach wastewater appropriately. The slopes at the site require that any development occur with care for erosion, a condition that future permits requiring erosion control plan is proposed below. Larry.
I agree with staff analysis.
Ed.
I agree.
Rich.
I'm going to go right back to where I started. If it violates number one, it violates everything. No.
Yeah.
I agree with staff analysis referring to the permit need for erosion control plan.
Bob.
I agree with staff analysis.
Greg.
Yes.
Wayne.
No.
Number 4, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. The cabin footprint is minimal and is not anticipated to have an effect on quantity of water runoff based on size. Ed?
I agree with the analysis.
Rich?
No.
Jim?
I agree with staff analysis.
Bob?
I agree with staff analysis.
Greg?
Yes.
Wayne?
No.
Larry?
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
Number 5, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. The soil survey indicates an Elbaville silt loam with 30 to 40% slopes comprising concave terrain within foot slopes. According to the soil survey of Houston County, this soil is prone to erosion and gully formation and is generally not suitable for building sites because of the steepness of slope. Minor site work has already been done and the cabin sits atop posts. The township has indicated that erosion is not currently a problem in this area. Who am I on? Ed?
I'd agree with the analysis and then with some stipulations in the conditions.
What's that last sentence there?
In the analysis? I'm sorry, I didn't read that. Yeah, the board should consider whether these challenges can be overcome, and if so, what would be needed for that to occur. So pretty much just what Ed just said. So Ed, you're a yes, and you believe that the reason being that you believe that conditions could remedy these challenges. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excuse me for a moment. I start my job now, so I just want to thank you guys for considering the situation, and if you ever see me out there, just please stop by and introduce yourself. I'd be happy to meet you guys. You guys have a good night, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
Bye now.
Here. Bye.
Okay, Rich.
No, and I don't think the board should have to solve these problems.
Jim.
No, I'll refer to the staff analysis indicating the soil surveys say that it's not a good place to put a cabin.
Bob.
I agree with Ed.
Greg.
Go with the staff analysis.
Wayne.
No.
And Larry.
No, and I agree with staff analysis.
Okay, so by count here so far, for a conditional use permit to be recommended for approval, we need to find that every finding is met. This one, I've got 4 no's so far and 3 yeses. Just saying that so everyone understands that this would mean that it couldn't be recommended for approval.
Well, then at that point, is there any sense going through any more findings here?
I think so. I mean, ultimately, the county board might, the county board might adjust this. They might not act on the planning commission's recommendation, so it might be useful for them to have all of them done.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with their vote, understanding that means that it's a denial recommendation.
I'm completely, this is Rich Shield, I'm completely comfortable.
Well, let's continue on with the analysis here so we can kind of get a record of the whole thing down then.
Okay.
Comment on one thing here. The staff analysis is going to go through and do erosion company come in and do a plan, correct?
Greg, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Are you guys going to have an erosion plan put in to this building site?
The conditions I've recommended, if this were to pass, yeah, it would have an erosion plan. Greg, are you asking if that changes the way anyone's viewing it? Okay.
I guess continue then, Aaron?
Yep, I'll continue. Number 6, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. There are none anticipated. No pollution hazards anticipated. Where are we at here? Rich?
Once again, violated number 1, no.
Jim?
I agree.
Bob? I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Yes.
I was just going to say that the only pollution hazard I could see was the privy, and if we follow with the recommendation that he would have a permit for the privy.
Okay. Bob, you're a yes. Greg?
Yes.
Wayne?
No.
Larry?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Number 7, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. No utilities are proposed. Access is from the township road, off which the parcel has 1,000+ feet of frontage. The applicant has discussed driveway connections, of which there are 2 with the township. Jim?
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
Bob?
I agree.
Greg?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Larry?
I agree with staff analysis.
Ed?
I agree.
And Rich?
No.
Number 8 was determined to be not applicable. Number 9, that facilities are provided to eliminate any traffic congestion or traffic hazard which may result from the proposed use. The addition of a cabin is not anticipated to affect traffic to and from the property. Bob?
I agree.
Greg?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Ed?
I agree.
Rich?
No.
Jim?
I agree.
Number 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. It is presumed that the property is currently used for recreation and hunting. The addition of a cabin to accommodate these uses is not anticipated to affect the use of neighboring properties. Craig?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Larry? Larry?
Yes, I
Ed.
agree with staff analysis.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
No.
Jim,
Yes.
and Bob.
I agree.
Number 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for the predominant uses in the area. The predominant land use is agriculture and forest, the continuation of which will not be impacted by a cabin. There are no known developments proposed in this area. Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I have to go back. Not agreeing with number 1. I do not agree with this.
Jim,
I agree with staff analysis.
Bob,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and number 12 was found to be not applicable. Number 13 was found to be not applicable. Number 14 was found to be not applicable. Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Public health, safety, morals, and general welfare are not anticipated to be affected. Larry,
Yes, I agree with staff analysis.
Ed,
I agree.
Rich,
I would have to say no, and I would piggyback that onto general welfare of people in the county would mean people actually following the rules and regulations of this county.
Jim,
I agree with staff analysis.
Bob,
I agree.
Greg,
Agree.
Wayne,
No.
okay, that concludes the findings. I guess I'll reiterate that finding number, or was that number 7? Oh, I'm sorry, no, number 5, the soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the use. That was not found to be the case. Before a motion to adopt the findings as they were created, is anyone having any second thoughts about how that vote went on number 5, or should we move forward? Hearing nothing, I guess I would recommend seeking a motion to adopt the findings that were just created.
I'll make that motion.
Go ahead. I'll second it. This is Larry.
Should we have a roll call then?
Greg,
Could, excuse me, this is Rich Hill. Could you read the motion that we're going to vote on right now?
this is simply a motion to adopt the findings that were just created. Okay, Greg,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rich,
No.
Jim,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
Okay. How the next part works, let me see. I believe my recommendation to you would be a motion to recommend denial. That the ordinance requires that. If you give me a second to look at the ordinance, I can.
I'll make that motion.
For denial?
Yeah.
I'd second that. This is Rich Shield.
See, is it okay to vote on that at this time, Aaron, with the roll
I don't
call?
see a reason why not. Yeah, you could roll call
So
that.
let's do that.
Motion to recommend denial of the application. Roll call. Greg?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that means it's going to be denied, right?
Right, yeah. If you vote yes, you're voting to recommend denial.
I'm voting no.
Wayne?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Ed?
I think we all have to vote yes because one stipulation is that we have to approve all of them, so I think it's a yes.
What'd you say, Ed?
What I'm saying is that we can't advance this for approval unless we vote affirmative on all of the conditions, and we didn't vote on one, so we don't have any choice but to vote yes that we are voting for denial.
I guess I'm reading here, if I can read from the ordinance here. I apologize that I just have not been in this situation many times, but section 6.5 from the zoning ordinance says standards for granting a conditional use permit. Findings required, subdivision 1. The planning commission shall not recommend a conditional use permit unless they find the following. And then it goes through the 15 findings that we just went through. So my read of that is that if you don't find that they meet all of them, it's to be denied. So just to clarify that, Rich.
Why did we waste all this time?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Why did we waste all this time? And we should have stopped right there then.
Actually, the reason we went through the findings is so that Aaron was suggesting that maybe the commissioners wanted to look at our findings to kind of make their decision. So that's how we went through all of them.
That didn't really matter because it was already denied after that one.
Well, no, all we do is recommend moving it on to the county board with our recommendation. The county board has the final say in how this goes. We're an advisory body. Is that correct, Aaron?
That's correct, yeah.
So it's a number of yes versus the number of no's on this committee, or do all of us have to say yes?
A majority have to find that every condition is met. So we had one condition where a majority found that it was not met, and I believe that requires, the language from the ordinance says that the planning commission shall not recommend a conditional use permit unless they find the following. And we did not find that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Four individuals found that they were not, 3 found that they were. So that number 5, we did not find that, and my read of this would mean that that's why you would be required to recommend that it be denied. However, the county board, as Ed explained, this is a recommendation to the county board, so the county board could find a different outcome, and the reason we went through all the findings is so they have a planning commission recommendation on each one.
I see. Thank you for that.
Rich.
I want to make this very clear. I vote for denial of this permit.
You're voting yes on the...
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Jim?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes, because of item 5.
Okay, I don't think the applicant is with us, but like the other applications, I anticipate this going to the county board on September 8th.
I guess at this time, Aaron, could I ask a question on the recommendations for the conditions on there? And the one I was looking at was number 7. The cabin will not be rented to use commercially. And I just my own peace of mind here, can we even restrict it? Because in the ordinance, there's nothing mentioned about anything like that. So is that just something that we would do arbitrarily, or what's your thought or anybody's thought on that?
I guess my thought on that is that, for example, the 2 cabin applications that preceded this, because when they presented their application to you as a board, they didn't include any information requesting that it be that they plan to rent it or use it commercially in the future, that they would not be allowed to do that. However, based on my prior interactions with the applicant this evening, I only suggested that just to underscore and make it extremely clear. We talked a lot about the volume of emails that we exchanged prior to this. By comparison, the number of emails that I exchanged with, say, Jim Weezer, the prior applicant, that was probably 3. And it seemed like there was not nearly the difficulty in understanding what the rules were. So the only reason I suggested that is because it appeared that perhaps there was a difficulty understanding what the rules were for this process with this particular applicant.
And I think you could do a cabin that you were going to rent out. You just have to be upfront and say so, and then kind of get approved for that process, correct?
That's the way I view it, is that when they come to the planning commission and the county board, what they say they're looking to do, are the bodies that can approve that and deny that as long as it's within the 4 corners of the ordinance.
Okay, that's all I wanted to clear up. Well, at this time, I guess we're kind of done with the hearing or the request for permits here. So, is there any other business? Let's see. Did everybody look at the minutes from last time? And somebody want to make a motion to approve those?
I make a motion to approve them. This is Bob.
I'll second it, Wayne Feldmeyer.
Okay, a motion is made and seconded to approve last month's minutes. We'll do a roll call.
Give me one moment here. Greg?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Jim?
I was not present, so I'll abstain.
And Bob?
Yes.
How about any other business to bring before the meeting tonight? Probably getting kind of late for too much more, huh? Being no further business, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. This is Larry.
Second?
I'll second.
I'll second. This is Bob.
Bob? Okay, Bob seconded. Roll call, I guess, again, huh?
Greg?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.